a majority to fill the vacancy, which is what we're doing.
Policy says that you're supposed to also follow Robert's rules of order as well.
And I'm certain that we are. We can vote.
Not
It's
the
a,
way we're,
it's a simple roll call vote, right?
yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I wish this would have come a little bit earlier so we could get that question out of the way. I just want to make sure we're not going against any of our policies. And I'm not saying what you're proposing is a bad idea. What I'm saying is, I'm not so sure if it's policy.
Okay, well, to give myself confidence to do this, I checked with Shana Lewis, our attorney, this afternoon, and she says it's perfectly acceptable. So I'm okay. Everyone else okay? Yes.
I just request next time that you let us know about these changes before, like, the actual time of this.
Okay.
I mean, because that's really not good. You know, it's just not fair.
Okay.
Was there a reason for the change?
Yeah, I felt, having been through it a couple times as a regular board member and then now as president, I felt the optics of voting no for a particular candidate are less than desirable. And I wanted the board members to vote in the affirmative for whoever they chose or choose, such that there's not a no vote to any particular person, but you're voting for the person you want, if you will. That's pure and simple. That's why I thought this was a better option. Okay, that's the procedure. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to, I presume these are mixed up. I'm going to ask Ms. Renee Steve to help me draw these out. Kim, would you write them down as I announce?
I sure will.
We will. You're one of the uninterested folks. Not uninteresting, uninterested. So, joining us first is Larry Lane. Kim, are you writing these down?
I got it, yep.
Here. Thanks. Brenda Wiener, is that correct? I apologize if I didn't get your name exactly right. Brenda will be second. Jennifer John, third. Gary Rao. And guess what, man? You are doing all right. Okay, Larry, welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
I can.
Okay.
I think I'm going to let Carrie come back because she's our audio expert, so I will not start yet.
Sometimes these maths are challenging, for sure.
I will read the questions for everyone. Do you all have a copy of that? Yes. You do.
Yeah, everybody has
I
5
thought this-
sheets,
I
one
thought
for
this
each candidate,
Gotcha.
that you can make your notes on.
As soon as Carrie rejoins us, I will begin. Carrie, are you good to go? Audio, video? Thumbs up. Okay. Once again, welcome, Larry. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your responses to the written questions. And I have 3 here that we will invite you to and I should have mentioned all the candidates. I'll try and repeat it. We're not going to hold you hard and fast with time limit, but we would expect a couple of minutes to each question, if you will. The other thing I neglected, I'll try and say it each time. We will allow the board members a follow-up question if something strikes you from one of their responses. We'll try to limit those to a couple or so. I don't think we need, a dozen, but you may say something that spurs a follow-up question. Okay, here we go. The first question is, our school district's vision is, we believe in opportunities, achievement, and community for all. What does this mean to you?
Okay, thank you, first of all, for having me here tonight. Opportunity is something that's very, very known to me, very understood by me. My world is different today because of education. The reality is I've been physically challenged all my life, and that those challenges certainly presented problems. But through education, I've been able to keep employed since age 17 in meaningful work, and I've been able to continue even at this point in my life with education. So I know education changes people. The opportunity for education gives people new chances in life. And as a therapist, a clinical therapist, I see that every day with my patients. The fact that maybe they're not employed right now, but are willing to go back to school. Or maybe they have a mental health issue. Or maybe they have a physical problem. That definitely creates opportunities for them to make a better life for themselves and their families. And as a result, the community benefits. There's no question that adequate or even better than adequate, which is an example of the Milton School District, much, much better than adequate education makes the community stronger and makes it more viable in the stressful world that we live in. Thank you.
Okay. I guess I would ask board members to jot your questions down. We'll probably entertain them at the end. I'll do all three questions for each candidate and then invite you to follow up if you need to or want to. Okay, the second question is, how do you find a balance between our need to be both strong fiscal stewards of taxpayer money and also provide a high-quality education for all students?
That's a challenge that exists not only at the school district level, but throughout all the corporations and organizations that I've worked with. Knowing what your mission is, and then knowing the amount of money that it takes to make that mission happen. And the way to balance that is to listen to the community where you're getting the funding from, in this case, the district residents, but also to be fiscally aware of the needs for certain programs to be continued or new programs to be introduced. And it's a constant challenge being on a board that way, but it can be done. And the way I do it is I look at the big picture, but then I pay attention to the details to make that big picture a possibility. So I think the way a board can make that happen is to have a real strong, clear vision of where you're going in the next 5 to 10 years, and then plan your budgets and your communications accordingly.
All right. And lastly, this one's pretty broad. It says, is there anything else that you would like to share to help us make our decision?
I bring a lot of professional and volunteer experience on boards, organizations. I think that's helpful. I have a broad perspective on what works and what doesn't work in working with a board. I'm humble in that I can always learn something new, but I'm also energized in that I have a lot of skills, information, and experience that I can bring forward in serving the board and serving the community.
Very good. That's the three that we had devised to ask everyone. Now I guess I would let my colleagues follow up if they had any.
I have a question. I'm Shelley Krolinke.
Hi, Shelley.
Do you feel there's a conflict with you being on the city council and then also playing a role in the school board?
No, in fact, as a councilman, I've been advocating more and more coordination and collaboration between the city and the school district. So I don't see it as a conflict. In fact, I would hope it would be a positive, and that there would be another avenue of communication between those two entities. So.
Hi, Larry. My name's Dave Ultraman. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
If you have the opportunity to serve on the board, project forward, what would you define as success in the next 12-month period or 18 months if you have an opportunity to participate here on the board?
And let me just clarify, success for the board, success for the district. I don't,
Success for the district, ultimately you're representing the district. So thanks for asking for the clarification, but success for the district.
Sure. I think one of the big things is you're well on the way already, but I would try to be a calm and new voice on the board to heal whatever might be out there that needs to be healed yet. That's very important. I think there's still some, if I can be frank, distrust. We're a little bit, out there, and misunderstandings that are out there. And so in the next 12 months, ideally, it would be great to get everything back on board so that the board feels comfortable with the community, but the community also feels comfortable with the board. That would be one of the things I'd focus on. So.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have nothing? Otherwise, we will thank Larry. And I'm hearing none. So Larry, I would invite you to stay and we will move to our next opportunity.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Larry, would you go get Brenda, please? Thank you, Mike. Okay, once again, welcome, Brenda. Thank you for joining us. Like I said earlier, thanks for your written responses to our questions. I have three questions here that I'll ask you to respond to. The exact same three for everyone, of course. The thing I did not mention for the whole group when we started, we would like you to answer as freely as you want, but limit it to a minute or two, a couple minutes probably. There's no hard and fast time limit, no bells going off or anything, but a couple of minutes if you want. And then the other piece is that when I've finished the three questions, or more importantly, when you have finished answering, we'll have a chance for board members to ask follow-up if they choose, maybe based on something that you say or not. I'm not sure, but board members will have a chance to ask a follow-up question or two, but not a dozen, probably. Okay, our first question is, our school district vision is we believe in opportunities, achievement, and community for all. What does this mean to you?
Well, that I'd like to see diversity in the schools, not just racial diversity, but in.
Could you move the mic a little closer to you? Thank you.
Better?
Do your best.
Okay. I'd like to see diversity in the schools, not just race diversity, but also academic diversity. I really believe that what we're teaching our children is what's going to develop them into productive members of society. I do believe that sports and those things are important, but I'm more interested in what we're actually, the classroom is being taught.
Okay, thank you. So our second question is, how do you find a balance between our need to be both strong fiscal stewards of taxpayer money and also provide a high-quality education for all students?
Well, my background is in finance. I spent almost 10 years in banking, and then now I do finance for Mercy Care Health System on the insurance side. So I spend a lot of time reviewing numbers, looking at the stats, and really trying to make an educated decision on what's the best options for the money. Because I always believe that we need to keep ourselves in budget, and that's important. But if that means we need to reach out and try to get more options, then that's something that you have to research and do. I really think that keeping ourselves financially sound is key for the future. For example, you look at what happened with Corona and really how that affected so many businesses, not just the school board. We have to be aware of what the future can bring to us.
Okay, thank you. And third question is very open, broad, if you will. Is there anything else that you would like to share that will help us make our decision?
So as you saw, I spent a tour of duty with the U.S. Coast Guard. So I had to spend a lot of time dealing with the public. I spent 10 years as a swim coach, so I spent a lot of time dealing with parents. So over the years, I've learned how to negotiate, and I just negotiate with people to come to a better result, to keep people on an even keel when it comes to what they're passionate about. When you're talking about your children's school, that's probably one of the biggest triggers for a lot of people. The school in a small community like this is pretty much the backbone of the community. If your school isn't strong, it isn't doing well, then your property taxes go down, people don't want to live here, they start leaving. And those are all things that's important to me to keep the school functioning well, doing well. And my son is only in 3rd grade. My daughter, we moved here 5 years ago. She started as a freshman at Milton. She graduated out. So it's important that Milton stays strong for my son so he can graduate here.
Okay, very good. Thank you for responding to those, the three that are the same for everybody. At this point, I guess the board has the option, anyone, I guess, to ask a follow-up if they choose.
Hi, I'm Shirley Krohinke. I was just looking at your last question that you answered about the high functioning board work together. I thought the comment you made about retirement age versus voting was really interesting because that's true. They're usually the highest voters. And just as clarification, you said about comparing us to cities around us. We are the fourth largest school in Rock County besides Craig, Parker, and Beloit. So when we're comparing, we're looking at student population. So do you think we should still be comparing? I know what you're saying about economics and things with cities because they have way more going for them in some of these other towns. But when we're looking at school size, would you agree that we need to compare ourselves to similar school sizes? Or we make something like tax base? I mean, yeah.
It's a really tough question. When you look at our population size, we're sitting at about 6,000, give or take, depending on what year you look at. You're looking at Gainesville, which is 65,000 people. So their tax base is huge. And I know there's people behind Walmart.
We get about 30% of our tax from.
So it makes a difference, but you can't necessarily compare. This isn't an apples to apples kind of scenario. You can't compare ourselves to Janesville when they're looking at so much more tax revenue that is coming into the bucket. So we still have to think about the tax revenue that our houses are in. And we never want to tax our people out of this neighborhood. We want to keep it strong. We want people improving their houses. We want people moving into our neighborhoods. But we don't ever want to have a young family say, I'd love to go to Milton, but I can't afford the taxes in that school district. We never want to have that type of scenario. Because then you're losing the young people, and then you're also the old people who want to retire, sell their home, go to Florida. My goal in life someday is go down to Florida. But I want my house to be valued where there's going to be a young person with a family that's going to want to come in there and live in there. And not tell me we can't afford to live in we love the school, we love the town, but we can't afford to live there. We never want to tax our families out of our school district.
Thank you.
Hi, Brenda. I'm very loud. Not normally, I'm very loud. But, in question number one, you spoke about diversity, and you said not just racial diversity, but academic diversity. I'm wondering if you could expound on that a little bit more and just discuss what you were talking about there.
Well, personally, I actually went to Bigfoot High School. So Bigfoot High School has got a lot of cash at their disposal. And when we moved down here, so I'm originally I went to Bigfoot, then I got in the military, got stationed up in Green Bay. We lived there for 20 years. We had a midlife crisis. We decided to come home. And when we decided to come home, my husband had a job offer. I literally took the map and said, 45 minutes from Beloit, we're going to visit. And me and my daughter went to every single school, 45 minutes over the Wisconsin border. Sorry, I had to add that. And we went to every school. And we looked at the culture, we looked at the extracurricular, we looked at their graduation rate, we looked at their finishing college, we looked at what the internet said about it, we looked at everything to decide what was the best choice. And Milton was our top choice to come to here. But what I did like about her, what my daughter liked, is she's not, the typical, normal kid. She wants others. So I like the fact that there was a lot of options for her here, even with that small environment. Because when we moved here, we wanted to raise our son in a smaller environment, a smaller city, because we came from Green Bay, which is huge. So we are looking for what me and my husband grew up with in the small community. So that's what we were looking for when we came here. But Milton gave us that diversity, but still in a small community. And that's what I mean. I want to see, I would like to see them have multiple types of biology. So the kids who are interested in that can go on and take that and then be able to say that, they've got that experience for college. I'd like to see some, I'm always a candidate for skills for people that are going straight into the workforce. We can't assume everybody's going to go to college. So I want to make sure there's a good transition there for those kids that are graduating, but they're not going on to college. Those are the things that are important to me. Not just football and sports. I mean, that's great for our kids, but you start looking at kids today, and less of them are playing those types of sports. They're branching out. They're not doing all that kind of stuff anymore. So we need to make sure that we're not trying to pigeonhole them into things that we think they should do instead of what they are doing.
Thank you.
Okay, are we good? Well, very good. Thank you for sharing those thoughts with us, and we would certainly invite you to stay and join us here. And we will ask Carrie to go get Jennifer. As hot as we can make it.
All right.
Okay, well, once again, welcome. Like I've shared with each candidate, thank you for your written responses. Those were certainly helpful. We've got 3 questions that we'll ask for your thoughts on. I should indicate that we were hopeful for a couple of minutes type of a time frame, although there will be no bells going off and no one will cut you off. A couple of minutes to contain what you want to share. And then following the third question, the board, I would ask the board to ask a follow-up question if they choose, maybe based on something you've said or shared in your written piece or whatever. So, and we'll only have a couple of those or something like that. Okay. So the first question we'll ask for your thoughts on is, our school district's vision is, we believe in opportunities, achievement, and community for all. What does this mean to you?
I think you break that down into sections, and certainly that's going to look different to everyone that you asked that question to. I would say that the community is the most important piece to that. And what that means to me, again, is the district's transparency. The district needs to continue its efforts in making sure that the students, the staff, the families, again, everyone within the community continues to be involved in some level. It doesn't, whatever level that is to the whole. I also think that they need to make sure they don't ever lose sight of the student and making sure that they're putting the students first in every decision I think that the board makes. I was a part of the UW-Rock County Dean's Council for a number of years, and I learned a lot about kind of that motto, that statement. That was something that Dean Diane Pillard really focused on, was every time this group meets the student, you should always put the student, what's best for the student first. And so I think that, again, if you stick with that motto, you'll follow the mission.
Okay, thank you. So our second question would be, how do you find a balance between our need to be both strong fiscal stewards for taxpayers' money and also provide a high-quality education for all students?
Strategic planning. I think that that's, again, that's about making sure your long-time plans, right, short-term and long-term. I mean, again, I think that's all about strategic planning. You have to work within your means, because, again, you have a responsibility to the taxpayers. And you do also have a responsibility, again, to provide programs and services for the students, high quality education. But I think thinking big picture there can help you decide what the specific goals are as you move forward. We all have to live within a budget, and the district is no different. There's only so much money, obviously, and I think as a board, it's very clear that you have to make sure that you, again, can do the most with what you've got. And I think if you forecast out financially with some strategic vision, again, I've seen it done in the private sector world, and it can be done, I think, again, in the public sector as well.
Okay. And thirdly, this is very broad or open, I guess, for your interpretation. Is there anything else that you would like to share that will help us make our decision?
Yes. I think what I bring to this group will be very valuable in the fact that I have a lot of connections with a lot of different, not only organizations, but just groups of people. And I think with my networking ability to really be out there and kind of being part of the face of the school board within the community is really important, I feel. And so, and I'd like to do that. I have a super positive attitude about the district. I again, and I know a lot of individuals, just again, based on the work that I do and all of the nonprofit boards that I serve on, that matters. I come to this group with a lot of experience as it relates to dealing with boards, as you know, again, serving as a town administrator, so working for boards, and then of course all of the various nonprofit boards that I serve on now. I feel like I've really seen a lot. Nothing is going to surprise me, but I would be another voice of reason.
Okay, very good. Those are the three questions for everyone. And now I would invite the board members, if they choose, to share a follow-up question if anyone has one.
Hi, good.
So I'm just gonna kind of combine what your experience, what you do, my question. But the question one you could so that you don't have to go on to students, definitely want to give students first decision. I'm very careful with. But you said you only want to make sure what's best for the student in their decision. And then I'm saying the same thing. You also talk about strategic planning when we talk about balancing being fiscally strong and providing high quality education. I do see sometimes those two can kind of split. For instance, give a hypothetical example. The administration can come to the board and say, well, this is a program that we really think is best for the students. It's a great decision, but it's going to put us $500,000 in red for the budget. How do you, how do you kind of balance this as well? Like what's the decision making in that process, whether to vote for it or against it? Keeping in mind that we're trying to balance both.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would definitely do my research and figure out, again, exactly what it is that the administration is bringing to us, and does it have the value in what it is that we're looking for? And again, does it meet our mission? Are we focusing on our goals? Long term financially, how much is this going to cost us? Are we going to recoup any of this money in regards to down the line? Is there grant opportunities to fund the program? Is there other options? I would definitely do my research again before casting a vote on something that would truly impact financially the decisions that we were making moving forward.
Thank you.
Anyone else? And I'm seeing none, so I will thank you for your responses and invite you to stay and join the audience as I send Ms. Terry to get Ms. Perry.
And Joe, thank you for changing the format. I really appreciate that.
Okay, Gary, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. As I said earlier, thank you for your written responses to the questions that we sent out. Those were very helpful. So we have 3 questions that we're going to invite your thoughts on. I'll read those to you and give you probably a couple of minutes to respond to each question as you see fit. When we've completed all 3, I'll invite the board members to get for a follow-up question or 2, probably based on something you've shared with us. So that's kind of the format we'll follow here. So, having said that, our first question, our school district's vision is we believe in opportunity, achievement, and community for all. What does this mean to you?
Well, if I look at personal experience, I think that what that entails is the opportunity for every student to be successful. I think it's a challenge for every teacher to make it opportune for students to be successful. And how does that happen? I think number 1, every teacher has the opportunity to provide an optimistic or pessimistic view of the classroom. And I think that as I review what may have happened in my life or other people's lives, sometimes kids really work hard at something. They're striving to get successful grades and to get the opportunity to go on beyond Milton High School. And sometimes they stumble. And I think it's important for us to recognize that it's possible for kids to stumble, but we show the door to them. So I think we look for those opportunities to make every child want to come to school, for every child to look forward to being in school, not saying, oh, I've got to go to school. So it's incumbent upon educators to do what's necessary to enhance those educational opportunities for kids to make them want to come to school.
Okay, thank you. Our second question is, how do you find a balance between our need to be both strong fiscal stewards of taxpayer money and also provide a high-quality education for all students?
I bet if I had the answer to that one, I'd be superintendent of schools for Milton. I don't know how you find that balance. I think every year is different. I have not had the experience of being a board member, but I understand that the equation tends to change annually depending upon a variety of factors. So I think the challenge is to be adaptable, to recognize this year may not be like next year, nor will it be like last year. So as you decide what kind of pool of funds you have available, you look at those services that you provide and prioritize those services. And I think the unique thing about a board is you have a number of people with different points of view. So I think if you provide a respect for each board member's point of view, open your mind a bit, perhaps you won't be focused just on what you thought it ought to be, but perhaps there's another way of looking at that equation.
Okay. And thirdly, This is intentionally open and broad. Is there anything else that you would like to share to help us make our decision?
What I would share is that obviously at this point in my career, being a retiree, I think I represent a significant portion of the population, those who are on a fixed income, the baby boomers, if you will. And I think it's very much incumbent upon board members to figure out how best to cultivate and motivate this segment of the population to support those things that you would like to do to enhance education here in Milton. I think at one point it was the World War II generation that we had to convince and show how each of these things would be valuable to them personally beyond not having children of their own still in school. Well, that generation has passed. I think the generation that I currently represent is that current body that you really have to administer to in terms of convincing them of the value of what you're doing.
Very good. Okay, that completes our three questions. Now I would invite my colleagues to ask any follow-ups they were prompted.
Hi, Gary. My name is Dave Holterman. Just a quick follow-up question on your initial email. You mentioned that your interest is more so for the here and now rather than running for potentially re-election come April 2021. I guess could you just expand on kind of what you see rolling out if you have the opportunity to serve on the board?
When I said that, I truly meant that. I think that this situation affords anyone the opportunity to try on a volunteer role and find out how it fits in their long-term situation. So I see this as an opportunity because I have a background in education. I have a background in a number of other things as well, but I'd like to lend those experiences I've had, those things that I've gleaned from being in the educational community, and seeing how that fits in to the next 4 or 5 months before that election time. Well, my primary goal is to serve out this term, then based upon my experiences, decide what happens after that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Here I have a question for you. In relation to question for you, balancing strong fiscal leadership with the other one. This is my whole education, and you mentioned that it's just very this be that and based on the current situation, prioritize services and other programs with what we have available to you. So my question is, you just elaborate a vision on how that prioritization, how you see that prioritization working, what would be the criteria?
If I understand your question correctly, I think that I alluded to and stated specifically in there that the COVID has provided some very unique challenges for this school board and for all staff members and students included. So what we have to do is we have an ever-changing interpretation, even from the scientific community, as to what that situation is. So on a daily basis, it may cause some adaptation. And as superintendent, I suspect every night is a waking night trying to figure out what will happen next. But based upon that, I'm a strong believer in science, so I would put my faith in science and try to determine what's the safest, best way to proceed to provide a positive education for students. Personally, I would prefer them to be face-to-face with teachers. I think that what I've observed thus far with my 3 grandchildren is that the day they're not in school, they are minimally engaged, perhaps an hour and a half, 2 hours at most. And I think that creates problems for the community. We have people who are having children in school but don't have childcare necessarily, so it creates another whole level of concern within the community itself. So I don't mean to be dancing around the point, but I think it's a matter of being adaptable. You recognize what you have to deal with and you make some decisions. Now, you may have to change that decision in 2 weeks and you'll face those people who say, but 2 weeks ago you just said this. Well, other information has come to light. And we had to weigh that evaluation of that information in terms of how to then proceed with educating students of Milton High School and elementary schools.
Anybody else? I'm seeing none, so we'll thank you for your responses and invite you to rejoin the audience. And Carrie has gone to retrieve Landon.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, welcome back, Landon.
Thank you.
Thank you for rejoining us, and thank you for joining us tonight at all. Thanks for your written responses to the questions that we had shared with you. It's helpful to review some of the insights and thoughts that you've got on those questions. So I have 3 questions I will ask your thoughts on. We're going to ask folks to confine your thoughts to a couple of minutes. So use that guideline, if you will. I won't cut you off necessarily. And the other thing I forgot to mention to the entire group is that once you finish responding to the 3rd question, I'll invite my board colleagues to ask a follow-up question or two based on something you said. Sure. So our first question is, our school district's vision is we believe in opportunities, achievement, and community for all. What does this mean to you?
So I guess I'll start with the first one, an opportunity. And opportunity to me is, I guess we'll start with our students and our kids. Opportunity for them to grow up in a school district that I grew up in, and many of people who I'm representing did as well. And it's opportunities that they might have here that propels them in future endeavors that they might have down the road. So creating opportunities for them, to me is a start. Also, as well as our faculty, our students, or our teachers, as well as our administrators, having an opportunity for them to have a voice, for them to move forward in their career and where they want to go as well. So I guess that's my vision of opportunity for this district. I guess achievement, if we create opportunities, there'll be some good achievements along the way. I mean, just look at what's happening right now at the school district and all of our schools. There's achievements all across the board, whether it be our new gymnasium going up, pool, STEM, elementary schools, etc. So the achievements are right there in front of you. An opportunity. Well, we already discussed opportunity, but community. It's ultimately the community's money, taxpayers that are making the decision. So getting the community involved. You do all 3 of those things and you're going to have a pretty successful school district.
Okay, thank you. Second question is, how do you find a balance between our need to be both strong fiscal stewards of taxpayer money and also provide a high-quality education for all students?
So in this response, I guess it's, I guess we'll take a business model approach, business plan approach. We have to look holistically at things we do well and things we don't do well. It's things that we can highlight and things that we do need to focus on that we might need work on. So how do we target those areas and how do we find those areas and how do we get ultimately moving forward and making sure our taxpayer dollars are well thought out and taken care of. So we need to find where the gaps are. We need to find where our strengths are. We need to play in both areas and highlight and accentuate the two and go from there.
Okay. And thirdly, this is intentionally open and broad. Is there anything else that you would like to share that will help us make our decision?
I mean, I can sit up here and tell you that I'm a graduate of Milton, and a lot of the teachers that have taught me are still employed by the school district. So, I mean, I explained a little bit in my written answers, but to sit here and say I didn't have help along the way to get here would be an understatement. So I just wanted to say thank you to all them. Yeah, it's about all I want to say.
Okay. Excellent. So thanks for those responses. And now I will invite my board colleagues to do any follow-up questions that struck them.
Hey, Brian.
Hey.
Good. How are you?
Good. Again, two questions.
Sure.
If you don't mind. Question number 2 of balancing the fiscal responsibility and faculty programming. You mentioned that you want to identify things we do well, you don't do well, and go from there. Can you clarify that a little bit? So I'm wondering if we find things that we don't do well, is that something we should eliminate to get us to a balanced budget, or is it something that you put priority on and then maybe not priority on something else? You just kind of clarify that a little bit.
Yep. So I guess coming up, there's a referendum going to be in place, and there's a lot of weight to that. I know a referendum was just passed, and the schools are going up, and schools are being depleted, and it looks good. But if that does not get passed, so priority 1 would be that 2.5. Life as we know it kind of goes away. The state comes down with the budget, we get that extra 2.5 that was agreed upon in 2016. And if that goes away, there's going to be some things that are going to need to be looked at to shift or move. So as a priority, there's going to be, if that does not get passed, it better be a priority, because then there's going to be a gap there. And how do you fill it? And where other words can you pull, or how are you going to balance that out is it's going to be there. So that would be a challenge, and that essentially would be a gap. Things you do well is I think the board is doing a great job of communicating that to the public, and it's something that needs to be done.
Okay, thank you. Question I had, question number 1. You mentioned that as part of the community involved, or having community involved, and I'm very appreciative of that.
No, you're fine.
So just kind of a question I would have is, how would you get the community involved, especially the community where potentially where they don't have students, maybe not even grandchildren,
Sure.
in the school district, but yet an essential piece
Yep.
of, especially with referendum, your essential piece. So how do you have any insight or vision on how to get the entire community involved? Parents and students.
Sure. So there's got to be some give and there's got to be some take, right? There's got to be some give, and there's got to be some take. So the community's got to wanting to accept change, and the board's got to do a good job of presenting change. So, for example, when you guys did the Q&A section on the rezoning, was great. You opened it up, you voted on it, there was some outreach, it got changed, and now we're in a school year, and I believe it's going well. So it's events like that, having Q&A sessions at various elementary schools or on-site locations that kind of show the progress of how the school is going, getting the community involved. And then the give on their end would be, just because they don't have any children going through the district. They might have 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So they were a part of the school district, whether they are now or they currently were. So it's a whole community thing. So that's kind of my response to that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shelley Krohinke. You've probably seen changes since you graduated in 2005 with the different additions and things, especially that are happening now. Where do you see your kids and your family and the community 5 years from now with these changes, or where do you see us?
Yep.
I
So
think you've been at some of the board meetings.
I have.
You've been in the back, and I didn't know who you were. And
Yep.
okay, so you've heard some of our
It's the hair.
discussions and stuff. So what's your impression?
The impression is there. I feel so in 5 years, I guess, where I see the district is having good communication and good partnerships with local universities, whether that's UW Whitewater. My wife works there, so I'm wearing a UW Whitewater mask, but UW Whitewater or Black Hawk Tech. So having those good relationships built up between ourselves and them. Having high test scores, that comes with parents willing to commit. That helps with good education, with teachers, with the good board, opportunities given to them on a daily basis, curriculum, going to that tier 3 or that 3 tier. I thought was a great move by Mr. Billhorn as well. So, and with the new referendum that was passed, with the new buildings that are in place, it's just going to allow the next 5 years to really take off. So me personally, in the next 5 years, attending basketball games, going to plays, attending the 4th of July parade, just like any father would be on a 6th and 7th and 8th grader. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Landon, question number one, I think it was when you were talking about community, you had made a comment, I put it in quotes, I know you said it. You said people I'm representing.
Yeah.
So who you, as if you were on the board, who are the people you would be representing?
It's everyone. It's anyone who wants to say I'm proud to be from Milton. It's anyone who is thinking about moving to Milton. It's anyone who attended Milton and like a lot of us attend, graduate, have a family, and come back. It's to my brother-in-law who's in the community, to my friends and family as well. So it's a community that is very tight-knit. It's very small. It's a great place to live. So neighbors helping neighbors, friends helping friends, colleagues helping colleagues, and that's who as a board would be representing.
Thanks.
Okay, anyone else? If not, thank you, Landon. And we will invite you to rejoin the audience.
Thank you.
I will, so now is a chance for the board to discuss and deliberate, and ultimately we have to pick a path, if you will, and fill our vacancy. So I guess I'll start and re-emphasize my thanks on behalf of the board for all of you to apply, to share, put yourself out there. It's challenging to do that. Those of us on the board have been through that, whether it was by election to fill a vacancy or by running in an election and being voted. You have to put yourself out there, share with folks what your thoughts, what your vision is, etc. And we certainly thank you for doing that. I think we heard something from everybody that's valuable, that's insightful. I know I always do. So once again, thank you for doing that. And ultimately, we'll pick a candidate to fill the vacancy, but do want to emphasize to the 4 folks that don't get selected how much we value your participation in the process. It's always, I think, a bit reassuring to the board that there are folks interested in doing this. We're not a bunch of lepers that no one wants to join. So thanks for that. I'm glad that there's interest in the community, and we would enjoy working with any one of you. So having said that, it's time for Joe to stop talking, and for the rest of the board to share their thoughts and anything that they deem appropriate things that struck you, things that moved you, a direction that you felt, and in no particular order.
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Joe.
My top two candidates right now are Landon and Gary Rao, for two complete opposite reasons, I think. Landon brings a perspective that is fresh back to the community. I think all the candidates had really good pieces for why they wanted to be here, and I liked all of their answers in different ways or another. And I liked our clarifying questions that everybody asked. But those two stood out more for me. I think Gary, with his expertise in the different areas, he took the opportunity to look up our state report card, which isn't always easy to find on the website. And just the diverse roles that he's played in the education system with at-risk kids, which would fit in with our MECAs and AODA. But I like Landon. I know once I recognize him talking, that he's been at many of our board meetings that since I came back on. And just some of his perspective there, he hit all three of the opportunity, achievement, and community. And I thought that was well thought out with those answers. That's just my thoughts.
I just want to thank you all for applying. This is so that you can I want to play off. You're not school district officers any solution. You guys sent forward, which means, that takes courage. I thank you for that. I would encourage all of you to, regardless of the things running in the spring, we'd love to see your name come down. We have 5 great candidates. We have 4 1As. My one is Jennifer. I think her experience working on the boards she's working on, both her administrative experience and everything else that she's doing, to me that benefits over that.
I'm going to go last.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be sequential if you folks are.
Oh. Well, I always have an opinion, right?
Please share.
Let me share. I never share my opinion. Well, I feel like Howie Mandel on here has got it down, because every time somebody would come up, I'd be like, yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, that's the girl. Yeah, that's the person I'm doing it. And now I would just say that all 5 of you, and whoever it is, everybody, all 5 of you bring something very beneficial, very valuable forward. That makes me good. So it made my reasoning and thinking a lot more difficult, and I don't think I'm really decided on who. But what I was really trying to in on and really trying to capture is which one of the candidates can make some really difficult decisions that may not be in agreement with the administration. And the reason why I say that is because while we all know with the current situation, COVID and revenues and all that stuff, there's going to be some really difficult financial decisions that are going to have to be made. And I also think that one of the main job functions of the school board is to be an oversight. So you can't always agree with the administration. I mean, one, the jury time is going to, but there's going to be some times when you are not going to agree with the administration. You really got to stick to your guns. So I'm really looking for somebody that's, willing to use the data and the evidence, the information, and logic to support any type of vote that they're going to have, even if it's going to be against a recommendation from the administration. Do what's best not only for kids, but you can't say yes to the kids for everything. Like parents, we don't say yes to our children all the time. Sometimes you got to say no. And so that's what I'm really looking for. And I got to tell you, it's going to be a tough, difficult decision. I have my, I have a few people that I'm really kind of concentrating on or thinking about. But I got to tell you this right now, any one of you five would be perfect for the board, in my opinion. So how's that for a non-opinion opinion?
I was really concentrating on a very specific part of question number one, and that was the for all part. And two people answered the question in the way I was hoping they would, and that was Gary and Landon. Mr. Rao, you said some really important things about every student should be successful, and that teachers need to provide opportunities for students to want to come to school and to achieve and be successful. And that's our job as the board too, is to make decisions that allow our administration to provide opportunities for students so that they want to come to school and to achieve. And Landon, you did a great job too of covering all three of those. Milton is a super diverse community, but we do have a super diverse student population. If you sit down with 10 students and just talk to them very briefly, you would find out they're all very, very different. And so I was really concentrating on that for all parts. So thank you. And I would also agree with all everyone else that you all did a great job. Thank you for your business. Thank you for the support of this community. It's people like you that make this place a good place to live, a place where families want to settle and raise their children and establish roots. So thank you very much.
All right, I guess I'm up at this point. Echoing what has already been said here, for the folks that came forward today, thank you. I think it's certainly not the easiest thing in the world to throw your hat in the ring on these things, and there's a lot to learn and a lot to be willing to listen to as part of this role. So again, as I look through your written responses and your conversations tonight, we do have some quality people, and I'm grateful that there's quality people who want to be involved in this role. So thank you again. As I looked at the group of people that we had, I think one of the things that jumped out at me is out of all the folks that we have here tonight, one of them, this is their second time around. I was very impressed when it was Jennifer and I sitting in the seats over here back in April, and I think she spoke well again tonight. I think her volunteer roles, both at Crime Stoppers, UW-Rock County, the town of Fulton, and the Government Relations Council at Forward Janesville, all are skill sets that bring something to our board. Through one of those organizations, Forward Janesville, I had a chance to know Jennifer a little bit over the years, and I can tell you she brings enthusiasm and energy to her tasks. And so while I think everyone here tonight would be a good fit with our board, in light of those observations of my own, I would throw my support towards Jennifer.
Okay, and like I said, I would reserve the right to go last. And I won't repeat the comments I made earlier. I'm certainly appreciative of everyone's efforts here, and I truly did hear something from everyone that really resonated and struck me. But I think the folks that moved me the most were probably Jennifer, Gary, and Larry. Just really was receptive to the ideas and your reflection of what we hope we're doing. I think it's always valuable as a board. I heard things that I know we need to improve on. I heard things that I think we have improved on, and I think you mentioned that, so I'm reassured that we have made progress in some of those areas, and we will continue to do that, or certainly try to. And your input, your role in that, if you're the candidate, would be certainly valuable. So that's my take on what we heard tonight. And in spite of all of us liking 2 or 3 or all of you, we ultimately have to pick one. So that's the difficult part of our task. And as I mentioned first, with our voting procedure, I'm going to first I better stop. Does any of the board have additional insight, thoughts, comments, anything like that? I don't want to cut anyone off that has a chance, but we don't need to be here till midnight either. So, but if everyone has had a chance to share what they wanted to, ultimately we do have to pick, and we've probably arrived at that moment. So, like I said, short of doing a motion, I'm going to do a roll call vote. It's not a motion per se, but it's your selection of the candidate that you want to support. And we're going to do it by voice, because I didn't hear grave opposition to doing that. The alternative is to do it on a piece of paper, which would ultimately be the same thing. So,
Can I request that we do it on paper for this reason? If I'm the fifth person, I don't want the other 4 people before me, their decision changing my decision.
and that's valid. I was aware of that when I proposed this. Would folks like to vote on a piece of paper?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, I think
Okay. We have, yeah, that's the protocol. So, like I said, it'll accomplish the same thing. So, yeah, and I should have had her prep for that. My apology. But, sure. You certainly can. Let's find Brian a pen. So just to be clear for the board, you have to sign as if this were a ballot. So put your name on it, please, and then the name of the candidate that you would choose. So an unsigned ballot is invalid legally, so it does have to have your name on it. So is Carrie getting paper, or are we using whatever is at our disposal? And I hate to seem ill-prepared, but that's the fact. Post-it notes will work just fine.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe,
Yes, sir.
Oh, is Joe gonna read them?
before those are counted, I want to make sure that it's clear what the next step would be with the votes. So
Sure.
if there's a clear.
Yeah. So, and I think maybe
majority, then that first.
yeah, I'll take over here. So we ultimately have to have at least 4 votes to have a simple majority amongst the 6 of us. So if we get that on the first vote, and I'm not going to,
That's fine. Are you gonna read them? Or would you like to?
I will have you read them.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you.
You can take that with you now.
You bet.
So when we arrive at a majority, that person will be elected to the vacancy, if you will. We will administer the oath of office tonight. So you essentially are seated immediately, and would be welcomed and become a member of the board right away. And we have another meeting in a week, and it coincides with our annual meeting, which if you've not been to, I would explain it, but it has a few subtleties that are different than a regular board meeting. But we can go over that in some detail. I should also mention that while she's tabulating, if she wants, so our board functions with a committee structure. We have 8, I believe it is, maybe 9. I didn't count them here. I think it's 8 committees.
There's 6 of us.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
There's 6 there.
That's it.
Oh, sorry. Got it.
And ultimately, we do committee assignments in April after the election and the board gets reorganized, et cetera. You certainly know that you're filling a vacancy, so hopefully, whoever the successful candidate is, we can plug you into the spots that we've got on the committees. You would have a chance to, rethink that or redo it in April if, in fact, you remained on the board, et cetera. So I'll explain how that works and what your role might be in those particular areas after we get to that point.
I ask one more thing, Joe. If with the votes that were just taken, if there's not a majority, for instance, there's two different candidates, then what's the plan to proceed then?
So we will revote immediately. Robert's rules requires us to do that 3 times. If we don't arrive at a majority, we are considered tied. Our board does give us the latitude to do it by appointment of the president if we can't come up with a majority vote. So that's our out. Please don't do that to me. But that is ultimately what I think would break our tie if in fact we end up there. So
by revote, are you talking about voting out of the 3 that each received 2, or re-voting with all 5 still in the pool?
it would be here again. Robert's rules would entail a runoff of sorts of the top 2 vote getters when you are trying to fill a particular seat. If you don't, it does not. If in fact that's the case, we would re-vote between those 3 candidates.
It's not 2 to 2.
Okay. Take the suspense away, Kim, and we'll decide what to do based on what you saw.
Okay, I'm going to start with Dave and just read around the table. Dave Holterman votes for Jennifer Johns. Brian Buckle votes for Brenda Rumer. Mike Hoffman votes for Gary Rao. Joe Martin votes for Jennifer Johns. Rick Mullen votes for Jennifer Johns. And Shelley Krohenke for Landon Lederman. So 3 for Jennifer Johns and 1 each for Brenda, Gary, and Landon.
Okay. That's as clear as mud.
So they all go back in then.
We cannot eliminate any candidate with that vote total.
Right.
Okay.
So your interpretation was exactly right. We get to revote. All 5 candidates are still under consideration.
Thank you.
Can you have a question? What's that? Do you have any questions? Oh, sure. Thanks. Oh, there's my phone. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna go this way. So where's Shelley? Shelley probably votes for Gary Rao. Rick Mullen votes for Jennifer Johns. And Joe votes for Jennifer Johns. And Mike votes for Landon Lederman. And Brian for Brenda Reamer. And Dave Holterman for Jennifer Johns. Same situation, Jennifer with 3 and the other with 1 apiece.
1 each. That's called deja vu. We are doing it again.
Is it seeker? Is it viewer?
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Carrie.
One, two, three, four. Oh, we finally got it. All right, I'm just gonna read willy-nilly. Rick votes for Rick Mullen for Jennifer Johns, Brian Quapple for Jennifer Johns, Joe Martin, Jennifer Johns, Mike Hoffman, Jennifer Johns, Dave Holterman, Jennifer Johns, and Shelley Kalnicki, Landon Lieberman. So we have 5 for Jennifer Johns and 1 for Landon Lieberman.
Mr. President, I move to appoint Edgar Gunn to the vacancy as a member of the school district of Milton Board of Education.
I'll second that motion.
I'll be happy to let you folks weigh in on that. It's a bit redundant, but motion on the floor and by Rick and seconded by Dave to appoint Jennifer as the winner of our vote to fill our vacancy. All in favor of that motion, I believe you can plural or you'd like that, signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed? That motion passes. Welcome to the school board pending your oath of office. And I cannot overemphasize my gratitude and our thanks to the rest of you for becoming part of the process, putting yourself out there, sharing your thoughts with us. We really, truly appreciate it. Would welcome you to run for office. If you didn't hear my diatribe at the previous meeting, there are 4 spots open for April, just by virtue of what would have been 3 normal spots, mine, Brian's, and this vacant spot that Jennifer will fill. Those are the 3 that are on cycle, if you will, to be up normally. And Dave is filling a vacancy since April, and that also will get filled by the voters. So there will be 4 spots available. The process for that, if you don't know and are interested, and I certainly hope you are, is to come up and see the district office after about the 5th of December. I don't know what the first day is. It's in that neighborhood. There's a whole packet of information that you would get for how to run the board as far as the organizational part. You have to obtain some nominating signatures, return those to us by first Tuesday in January, and then you would be on the ballot, if you will, for April or sooner if there would be a primary needed. So that's just in a nutshell how the school board election works. I would certainly encourage all of you to do that. It's been delightful to hear your thoughts, and I would ask you to continue to share those. If you've got ideas for us, that's how we operate here, is on the ideas that we hear and get from the community, and balance all of that with what our task is to do all the things that folks shared with us. So once again, thank you for joining us. Welcome, Jennifer. We will, Kim's got the oath. If you want to move closer to the front of the building here, we'll let Kim do her official duties.
Having been appointed to the office of the Board of Education for School District of Milton, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability. That's it.
I hereby declare you seated. Once again, welcome. We will adjourn shortly. I will invite you to stay for a few minutes. I've got a couple things to share with you. That completes our agenda. You folks would like to go home, please help me get out of here.
I move we adjourn. Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed. Thank you for joining us. See you in a week.